Have you ever gone to prison? Do you know anybody who's ever gone to prison? If you're white, the answer is far less likely to be yes to either of those questions than if you're black. Here's a couple statistics. If you're a man, there's a 9% chance you'll go to prison versus 1% if you're a woman. But if you're white, there is a 2.5% chance you'll go to prison in your lifetime. If you're black, it's almost 10%. A black man in America has a 1 in 4 chance likelihood of going to prison. 25%. I mean, those are good odds that you're going. If I told you had a 25% of anything, that's a big chunk. And if you're a white man, it's 1 in 23% chance. I'm Rob Nelson. This is Rob Nelson Live.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. My name's Rob Nelson. I used to have a talk show on Fox, a show on Fox News. But news in America is so produced. I don't care if you think it's left, right, center, fake.
You passed tougher legislation to deal with the paparazzi after what happened with you and your family.
I think it's very important that we focus on rebuilding.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the show. Let's hit these stats again. By the way, I've got a panel of amazing people coming on today to talk about the cycle of putting people in prison and keeping people out of prison and keeping them from going back into prison. And I'm going to focus a lot of this on black men because let's hit those statistics again. If you're a white man in America, you have a 1 in 23% chance of going to prison. Basically, that's pretty low chance. It's not sure, you'd rather 1 in 100, but 1 in 23 is not bad. If you're a black man, you have a 1 in 4 chance. 1 in 4. People will bet on 1 in 4 on a lot of things. Told me my team's got a 25% chance of winning the NBA Finals, winning the Super Bowl. That's high. That's high odds. And that's sad that those odds are that high for a black man to go to prison. And before you say, if you're going to say, hey, you know what? That's because black people commit a lot of crime. It's the thing people always like to say. Okay. Those numbers don't make sense. Black people make up around 13.5% of the U.S. population, and yet black men have a 1 in 4 chance of being in prison compared to 1 in 23 for white people. That's not just because black people commit a lot of crimes. Yeah, technically they got to be committing a crime to be going to prison, sure, but the problem gets much deeper, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Going to share a very short story that sets this up. I worked with a group in Los Angeles, and we took a group of USC law students to San Quentin. And we took them there to meet with lifers. And before we went, every single one of these young students, including the black students, all different incomes, some were on scholarship, some were from elite families, legacy families. Every single one of them was like, people who go to prison aren't like me. I'd never go to prison. No one I know would ever go to prison. My parents wouldn't go to prison. Maybe some might think, well, if my dad committed some financial crime, maybe, but no. People like me don't go to prison. People I know don't go to prison, certainly don't go to prison for life. And I wouldn't want to be around those people, know those people. I'd be pissed if my sister was dating those people. I wouldn't hire those people, and I really wouldn't be friends with those people. I mean, they got a right to live, but those people are not like me. Every single one of them said that. We spent a day with lifers in San Quentin. It was part of a program. Again, we were going into the prisons and doing stuff and working with people. It was arts and music and a program focused a lot on rebuilding lives inside and outside the prison. And this group of lifers, and they were all people who taken responsibility for what they did. Don't get me wrong. They weren't sitting there saying, I didn't do it. They were saying, I did do it. And the typical story often was, I was 17 years old when I did it. Yeah, I did something really horrible when I was 17 years old. And I will never undo it. I can never make it up to the people whose lives I ruined. I can never make it up to the person I killed, to that person's family. I can never make it up to my family that I ruined as well. I can never make it up to my kids if I have them. I can never make it up to my parents, my siblings. I can never make it up to my community. I can never make it up to myself. But I really can't make it up to them, to the people who were hurt. But how I got there, how I ended up here wasn't just because I made, because I wanted to, because I'm a black person who made dumb choices. That was the path that it seemed somehow inevitable to happen. I didn't have a lot to lose being in a gang. It was the best option I had. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have the right value structure, the system to realize what I was going to happen when I was doing these things. And something went terribly wrong and somebody died and I'm in prison for life. Every one of these men was trying to do something about it, to reach out, to improve their lives and the lives around them, to make amends to the communities of victims, whether it was their particular victims or others, to work with programs outside of the prison to keep other young men from making the same mistakes. And every single one of them said, if I could go back, knowing what I know now, not just because I'm in prison, knowing what I know now, what I would do differently. When we left that prison, every single one of those students had an entirely different view about people in prison. And every single one of them had a version of a story that went like, you know, if I'd been raised differently, if I hadn't had the resources I had, the stability I had, the structure I had, the school I had, the family I had, this, that, and the other, that could have been me. I liked these men I met. I learned to respect them, saw their intelligence, their artistic abilities, their humanity. That could have been me. And I would actually want to know that person if they got out of prison. I would be willing to hire. My whole perception of people in prison changed, not mine, the students we took in. We're living in two different worlds. People who go to prison and people who try to help them in the Black community. And a lot of people outside of it who really don't understand and just look at it like they're the other. There's no other. There's one us. In 1860, I had to look at my notes, I was going to say 64, 1868, the 14th Amendment was passed. The 14th Amendment was supposed to make things equal for Black people. And what a lot of white people did right after that was, and I'm not bashing all white people, but let's be honest about the times we were in, they passed Black codes, Jim Crow laws. Well, okay, the Constitution says we can't discriminate. We have to give you equal protection under the law. We're going to write new laws that are going to screw you over. And those Jim Crow laws stayed in place till the late 1960s. So anybody who's, was born before 1970 was part of that world. You grew up in it. It was around you. And those laws set in place a horrible, horrible cycle, which is what we're dealing with today. Let me welcome all my guests. Hey, everybody, thanks for being here. Just pop all up at once and I'll introduce you. Nope, no guests. All right, try to get you up. Roy Vela, tech entrepreneur.
Hey, Rob.
Pastor Garland Scott, JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And he does, we played around with this. He does outreach. I like the way Pastor Scott put it. I work with the people who are most likely to die, be killed, or most likely to kill someone else. Tony Smith, an outreach worker with Cure Violence, and Pastor Thomas, also Pastor Thomas Jordan, also with Cure Violence, and a guy who's on the streets outreach, working with people to try to keep them out. Thank you guys all for being here. I picked you all because you all bring really different perspectives to this. And as you'll see, there is the white guy up in the middle, Roy Vela. And I brought Roy to this conversation. I've known Roy a long time, and Roy was at Stanford Business School when I was at Stanford Law School. And Roy is a tech entrepreneur. And I think tech companies look at problems very differently than the way we often look at them in public policy terms. So I wanted to throw sort of a twist into the discussion. Pastor Scott, you've had public policy experience working with the Bush administration, and you're on the ground in Jacksonville, really working with people who are going into prison, coming out of prison. And Anthony and Thomas, you both are at the ground level. And Thomas, I want to start with you because you served 20 plus years of a life sentence.
Yes, I served 21 years in the Florida Penitentiary. After having a natural life sentence, God favored me and brought me out. And so now I'm trying to prevent others from going where I went, trying to be a light, a light in the dark, right, in that situation.
Thomas, real quickly, why did you go to prison?
I went to prison for 5 counts of attempted murder and 1 count.
5 counts of attempted murder.
Yes.
So you tried to kill 5 people?
Yes.
And how old were you?
17.
So people can understand. You're 17 years old. You're part of a gang, I'm guessing?
No, not at all.
No, not at all. Why did you try? Just to give me the short story just for time. But I want you to
Story, I
understand.
was with some guys. We were selling drugs. They were selling drugs. Actually, I had just got out of prison from selling drugs. I was doing 6 months. And they were selling drugs. I went there. They went to pick up their money. Shootout expired. I'm with them. I got found guilty and went to trial because I didn't shoot anybody. I was charged with the crime, but I didn't shoot anybody. But nevertheless, I was sentenced to life.
And when you look back now, what would you tell your 17-year-old self that he could not know because of his circumstances?
Well, a lot played into me getting a life sentence. When I went to trial, it was election year. So you got somebody running for state attorney office saying that I'm going to be punished crimes and all this stuff here. But I would tell myself, you have to make better decisions. And that's what it really boiled down to. You have to be smart about the things you're doing. It ain't that you don't know. We know better, but we just don't think about it. It's just,
Why didn't you think about it? Why didn't you think? I mean, young people don't think about things a lot, right? But you don't get a ton of stories of young white men at 17 who are going to prison for 5 counts of attempted murder. But you hear versions of that in the black community all the time. And any one of you guys can jump into this conversation, by the way.
Yeah, well, I won't say that it's mostly blacks, because white folks do a lot of killing too. Don't get it twisted. But a lot of stuff that they do, we're more apt to get more punished than them. We will come by and say, well, hey, let's come and plead insanity. But it'd be most of us black folks who don't have the money to pay for the lawyers. Remember, I told you I was charged with them, but I didn't shoot anybody.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, I do.
It doesn't mean that the blacks are doing it. You look at it, you got more white folks on death row than you do black folks for murder.
Fair enough, but you guys can all jump in on this, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into a spot on that. But the reality is, when it's not just that white teenagers aren't getting charged with attempted murder and they didn't shoot the gun. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a perception that's in the media. Maybe it's a perception that's out there. But it seems like it is far more likely for a young black man. And again, our inner cities are far more black than white. The most intense areas of poverty and violence that aren't rural tend to be urban and black. So it would make sense that you're more involved in that thing. But am I wrong to say that it's more black than white? I mean, obviously more black men are going to prison. And do you really think it's just the laws alone, just the laws that are made, that they're just unfair laws? I mean, you should have still gone to prison theoretically, whether you pulled the trigger or not.
It's how it's applied. We all have the same law, but most of them aren't going to take and prosecute the white like they will the black. It is what it is. It's not that they aren't committing crime. It's just that they get better opportunities to get better public defenders or private lawyers. The law practice more favor them because, he didn't mean to do it, versus they are going to be that way. That's who
I
they
understand.
are.
I understand. I'm pushed back. I want you guys to please jump in. Don't wait for me to ask you. I mean, if you agree with me or with, and we're not necessarily that far apart, but I'm not saying laws are applied unfairly, but I'm saying, in my view, you have a lot more young black men being charged with things, whether they're being overcharged or not. You have a lot more black men who are committing crimes that are putting them in the system, and often will say, I didn't know.
But you're ignoring the circumstances. You're ignoring the environment and the circumstances, right? It goes all the way back to the way we apply public education, the redlining of housing and school districts. I mean, the circumstances are such that you're much more likely to be in that kind of a situation in the environment that you're in. Like that's just the reality of it. And it's where we allocate public funds.
And I'm agreeing with that, but I want to be clear to everybody. Okay. I'm not saying I think young black men commit more crimes because they're bad. I'm saying I think we have a system that not just at the law application, that the infrastructure leads to it to be more likely that you are going to end up in those situations. Is that a fair thing to say, what Roy is saying? Pastor Scott or Tony, Anthony, weigh in on this. You guys feel free to just talk.
I think one of the things that is happening in the difference, like you said, urban and rural areas where young Black men are, the glorifying of crime and the glorifying of being someone who has went to prison is something that's a stigma in our community that we propagate. And when I'm in my community and the choice is either I die in these streets or I join the military because I don't got money to go to college. I didn't play football, so I'm an athlete, but I don't got a scholarship. So what do I do? So what are the examples I have in my community? What are the examples of what's being propagated as this is man stuff? This is what men do. And so I think that's a greater issue that's not really been addressed is the community itself. And also not only just the community itself, on the other side of it, outside of my community, then the glorification of my community being full of criminals and thugs. You know, that the old just like you said, the two crimes, you got the two pictures. The same they both done it. And this is a resentful, sorry, remorseful human being as the white guy, but this is the thug. You find all my pictures while I was on Facebook and make me be more criminal, have a more criminal element. I think that leads to more of the displacement of us being in prison than anything.
Okay.
Let me pick up on what Anthony said, which I think is very valuable and important. These people are making rational decisions. It's not that they're like, you know, uneducated or ignorant. They're making given the options I have in front of me. What am I going to do if I'm not going to be a pro athlete? If I'm not going to, this is the list of things that have been presented to me to prove my worth, to prove who I am, and to be a man in my community. And you know, the options are limited based on the system that's presented, right? Like it's wrong. I mean, it's inherently wrong in my opinion.
So, Pastor Scott, you're being very quiet over there. I want you to win, and you guys, I want to first just say, everybody, feel free to talk openly, like with each other. It's a real conversation. Secondly, just to the audience out there, we're getting some weird feedback. So if all of you, when you're not talking, could mute your microphones, because somebody's kicking in with a little feedback. So thanks to everybody watching for sort of bearing with that. We got a lot of devices going at once in here today. Pastor Scott, you've been very quiet, and you have a lot to say on this. You've been in the public policy side, sort of in Washington, and you've been on the ground level here dealing with it in a lot of different ways. So jump in.
I've also been in the streets. I'm not just a yuppie tie wearing. And some of the things you say, I agree with, okay? A lot of young Black Afro-Americans and brown and Black people get caught up in crime, okay? And that's true. Number one, they don't know the consequences. Consequences are greater than the decisions they make. I've been doing outreach and support for group and gang violence in Jacksonville consistently on a project called Custom Notifications. Sadly to say, I can admit this, and a lot of people get upset. I've done 520 door-to-door knocks to rescue people for that bent in the road. Out of 520 something, it was only 4 white guys and possibly 5 girls. They were all Afro-Americans committing crime. We did a study with the National Network for Safe Community out of John Jay College about crimes in Jacksonville, Florida. And it was crazy what came back. 40% of all violent crimes in Jacksonville, Florida is only done by less than 1% of the population. And this is the crazy thing. They only victimize each other. So this is a new trend now that you're getting more Black on Black crime than anything else. They're going to jail for hurting each other. And a lot of us fail to realize that. But thank God for a cure violence. Thank God for a sheriff in the city that's trying to combat the crime. That's why sometimes I have some struggles with Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter, why are we still killing each other?
Okay, so let me ask you this, Pastor Garland. And by the way, you guys, can you do me a favor? Everybody mute your mics when you're actually not talking, because that way we can figure out whose mic is giving us feedback. and just hit it when you talk. So Pastor Garland, so is the focus for you that there is, you see it as black on black, you're saying black on black violence is an equal part of this problem that's being built in systemically? Not from
Yes,
white
it
people
is.
or racism. I mean, it's built into the system at this point, becomes a problem that keeps putting people in prison.
Yes, it is. It's historical beef. They're fighting each other. You got East Side against North Side. If that doesn't work, you got to know all they're doing is going back and forth over idiotic things, over girlfriend drama, over rap videos, diss videos, and it's going back and forth. And we sit back and blame the white man, that it's the white man's fault, and the white man ain't doing nothing. Matter of fact, where I'm at, I can only speak for Duval County, the largest city landmass in the United States of America, broke up in different neighborhoods that have a propensity to violate and commit crimes on each other. You don't have nobody.
Yeah, but that's blaming the victim. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but I feel like you're blaming the victim. Like at the end of the day, the circumstances and the environment of those communities is such that there is not equal opportunity. There's not opportunity for education of equal level. There's not opportunity for employment. There's not opportunity, and so the community. So So let me interrupt you guys. No, hold on. I want you to have a dialogue on this, and I want Thomas and Anthony to weigh in too, because you guys both came. You both come from the streets in that way, and this is the honest conversation. I think the hard conversation we have to have. I think it's interesting that Pastor Scott, you're saying you're putting what you're putting out there as a black man. Roy, as a growing up as a middle class white guy with a liberal heart, is saying. This is blaming the victim. Black men aren't responsible. And I think the truth has to be somewhere in the middle. You can't simply say black on black violence is not part of the problem and that's caused by black people.
Who is the victim? Who is the victim? You said we're blaming the victim. Who is the victim?
And I want to be clear.
Who is the victim?
The victim is both the perpetrator of the crime in that community and the victim of the crime. And when I say you're blaming the victim, that perpetrator is not presented a lot of good options. And I want to be clear, Rob, like I'm just out of context. Born and raised in inner city Brooklyn, worked in Cabrini Green in Chicago in the inner city. In Worcester, I worked in the inner city as a big brother to a black little brother. I've met a lot of people over time, universally with good intent and looking at the opportunities ahead of them.
Right.
Like, what can I do given what is offered to me as education, as employment, as opportunity?
Right. So, and a fair point. And Tony and Thomas, please weigh into this conversation. I know I'm pushing you guys, but here's the thing. What we're saying here is the debate that goes on that never gets fully addressed. And it's my feeling that both things have to be true. You can't just say it's white people and the system, which is true. The system white people put in place created a lot of stuff. But, this whole notion that you look past black on black violence and go, well, that's not really the people who are doing its fault. I mean, Tony, I've even heard you say you feel like the message young men get in black communities is not necessarily the right message about what a man should be.
Okay, let me respond to what he said.
But
okay,
go ahead.
You guys lean into your mics for me. Lean close to your mic.
You was gonna say something, Pastor Garland?
Go ahead, Pastor.
Yeah,
Scott.
right quick. Listen. Okay, what's my friend name in the middle?
Roy.
What's the brother in the middle? Me and him going back, huh?
Roy.
I can't hear you. Listen.
Roy.
Okay, listen. I was born in the Bronx, New York. Okay.
Hey.
I was raised in Brooklyn, New York. Ran back and forth. I'm a Brooklyn. I was in gangs there. Okay. It wasn't a lot of opportunities back then for guys in the street. But today, okay, we cannot just slap wrists for crimes that's being committed. I got a person right now I'm dealing with. He went to school with a gun and he shot somebody accidentally. So you saying the victim? Okay.
No, I don't disagree.
How do you?
I don't disagree.
So many
Yeah.
I would say this. Can I say this?
feed. He's going to log back in. Tony Thomas, weigh in on
Can I
this.
say this? I understand both of their points. I understand where Pastor Garland is saying that a lot of stuff is black on black crime, but when what I believe Roy is saying is that because they haven't been presented with the same opportunities and the same chance at life, that they are victims. And even as DJ would tell you, that most of us will what we found ourselves doing is living up to an unrealistic expectation of a man, because that's all we know. What Roy is pointing out, this is our surrounding. This is how life is supposed to be. Like for me, when I was in it, I went to prison for selling drugs, got out, got caught up with some guy, with family members that did a shooting, but I caught the life sentence. The actual guys that shot didn't catch the life sentence. Why? Because I was a two-time offender. Not only that, because I felt like, just like DJ will, he probably gonna chime in and tell you the same thing. I was under the notion that keeping it quiet was keeping it real, not realizing that I'm hurting my family. I lost 21 years of my life that I can't get back. So what we have to realize is that I agree with both, that you cannot get mad. This is me. I talk to my team every day. We can't get mad when a white guy or white cop kills a black person and then don't get mad or have the same energy when it's black on black. And I believe that's what Pastor Garland was saying, that we have to deal with that. But what Roy is saying, which I agree, is because they're already been, watch this here, victimized.
Okay.
By what you just said, a systemic system that has created or was created for them. Because even in the housing, when it comes to banking, when it comes to borrowing money, because of the areas that you stay in, your credit scores are already low.
Yeah.
This is life. And so life functions to survive.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jay, I'm sorry.
No, one of the things that's really important is when we say victim, and even when we say perpetrator. I think where we get maybe even a bump in the heads is that there is a victim and there is a perpetrator, but what's really is what created that? What environment creates where a black man can kill another black man and it's no big deal? It's the value of life, or the no value of life that is heavy in our community, where It's no big deal. Because I'm gonna just say this: if I go in my community and kill another black man, I'll give you an example. We had a missing young lady. She was 7 years old. She was Hispanic, and no, she wasn't missing. She got killed in a drive-by in an area in Jacksonville. They found the person who was a young black kid. They found that person in 2 days. So, in that same sense, we have so many unsolved murders for black. There's not the same. There's little baby Aiden.
All right, so let me ask you guys this. And by the way, what I'm going to do here, guys, Pastor Garland is still with us. I'm going to keep you guys 3 at a time. So I'll pop one of you back out and pop him in a couple minutes, because we're having too many audio and tech issues, so it's making it hard for people, and I want people to really be able to hear what's going on. Right. So Pastor Garland, stay with us. I'll bring you up in a few minutes, and let's just wrap this around now for a second. So I want to understand where everybody's coming from. Thomas, you're saying, so give me the 2-sentence version of your response to Roy saying, don't blame the victim. And I know it's more complex than that, but Roy saying the circumstances don't give them any other choice.
As I said, I agree with him, because they ain't been dealt. We don't play with the same playing cards. The field isn't a level playing field when it comes to blacks and white, because I don't believe in the silver spoon. I believe everything you get, you have to work for. But some people have to work harder than others. And then just because of the judicial system, the laws, like I said, the laws are the same law. It applies to all of us. But the judicial system pursue them differently.
I agree. All right. I'm not going to disagree with that. So let's.
That's what Anthony's saying. Even the cops are going after the groups differently with different intensity.
Look, let's acknowledge that we have a problem with systemic abuse in policing, whether it's because I like to say police poor communities harder. and they tend to police Black poor communities very hard, and it's a policing thing. I don't actually think it's more than a race thing. It's a policing thing.
Well, also, hold on. But the police are applying the law. So the war on drugs, by the way.
All right, I get it.
Be skewed to
absolutely. Look. Here's where I want to try to take this. We know the conversation right now has centered and will stay on where Roy is going, which is the laws are unfair. Thomas, you've pointed that out. It's a systemic problem. And I'm trying to go, it's never as simple as one narrow thing. And that's why I want to get to the more complexity. So when I'm saying you can say police Black communities harder, they're racists. Black police officers police Black communities harder. Black police officers who grew up in those communities often police them harder. But it's also a mindset about policing. So let's acknowledge we have police problems that we need to deal with. We also have an unfair application at times of the legal system, which is what, Thomas, you're referring to. Both of those are true. At the same time, we've got a cycle of young men going and lining up, getting into gang life, making bad choices that's separate from that over policing and separate from that bad application of laws. That's all I'm putting out.
Yeah, but what they're dealing with is both the environment in which they grow up, which is public housing that's underfunded, and the education that they get, which is also underfunded.
Got it. I agree.
The ground that those are trying to grow in is corrupted already.
I agree. I want you guys to weigh in on there. I agree. And look here, I'm arguing with the white guy, but here's my point. I agree, but we at some level we have to bring together the systemic problems that need to be fixed and the problems within the community, which is why we get in this problem when people say, what about Black on Black violence? And the Don Lemons go, that's not important. And it's like, it is important that young Black men are killing young Black men every single day, and kids are getting shot in the streets, and the media just ignores it because it's not a cop shooting at someone.
It's very important, because when we realize, and my man DJ, he gonna hit it harder than I will, is the same thing that we were speaking on when we was talking about the recidivism rate when we had the crucial conversation. You have to present something different to people. I did not know that I could be better than what I was raised in until I found a sense of God and I had a different perception about life. When you don't have any other thing but what you know and what you see, nobody's taking time to say, hey, you can be this, you can be that. We're not showing them. DJ gonna tell you better than me. I'm gonna be quiet because I know he can give it to you better. What we present to our youth, like the system I'm saying now, here it is. We're letting them out. Me, I got set out on prison after 21 years of being institutionalized. You trying to tell me I'm in my right mind when you set me on a street corner with no money, with no nothing, and you tell me to go live. If it wasn't for God, I would have been a repeat offender again. If it wasn't from a matured mind and somebody telling me you could be better, I would have went back.
And
Go ahead.
And I think, who's trying to talk? Anthony? We're still getting that feedback. And I think that's a really important place to move the conversation to, which is, the reality is, one, what's helping keep people from getting into prison. And let's acknowledge the systemic problems, and we need to deal with the infrastructure and the housing and the horrible schools. These are real problems where they need to be dealt with. Secondly, we got a challenge to deal with giving young men different choices and also giving them a different value set. DJ, I know you want you to talk about that. And third, what you're saying, Thomas, we have to deal with the fact that once you get out of prison, you're right, you're screwed. It's like you can't even get a job if you don't have a cell phone and a way to get to work.
Well, watch this. Because I want DJ to talk, but this is the thing about it. You send them to prison to be a better prison. These not institutions to correct you. You take a young man at 17 who doesn't know better. You put him in a system with grown men who think they can outthink the system. And then we end up having repeat offenders because they haven't learned anything. There's nothing positive in it. Those are not institutions to correct. I don't know what they are, but I'm going to shut up. I know.
All right, DJ, take it for a minute.
We can't hear you, DJ. I don't know. I think you're muted.
Mike muted.
Go ahead, DJ. Unmute yourself.
It's not working.
All right. Let's bring Pastor Garland up and we'll get DJ's mic fixed. DJ, refresh your browser for us. Just log back in again. Pastor Garland, welcome back. We're having COVID technology issues. Can you hear us,
Hello?
Pastor Scott?
Yeah, there you go.
I can hear you. I'm trying. Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Okay, so
you hear me
pick it
now?
up. We'll get DJ back to weigh in, but
Okay.
you've heard what we've been saying. And now, Pastor Scott,
Yeah, I heard what you.
Pastor Scott, what some people would say is they would say, you know what, Pastor Scott's that older black guy who just doesn't get it.
No, not
No, I'm saying,
Well, you know what?
hearing that debate,
you
we
know what
say
people need
you're
to-
apologizing for the victim, whereas the younger person is like, no, like we're getting screwed, and you're like, yeah, no, we are and we're not.
No, if I didn't get it, I wouldn't help 500 and something people this year get out of the streets. If I didn't get it, I wouldn't provide 150 outreach and support services for HUD communities. If I didn't get it, I wouldn't put schools inside of HUD development areas. If I didn't get it, I wouldn't provide mental health for kids that's paranoid and schizophrenic from being in that environment. If I didn't get it, I wouldn't come out of gangs to come here and work for the sheriff's office, because I'm the one that don't have sympathy. I'm the one that have empathy. If I didn't get it, Tommy or DJ wouldn't be on your show. If I didn't get it, I was the one that picked them.
Now I got you guys. Okay. Finally, I got you.
You got me now?
Out of the corner.
Word to
Now
the
I
mother.
got you going. Thank you, Pastor Scott. This is what we want. I want you guys on fire. No more gloves off. No more being played off. Thank you, Pastor Scott. And anybody who was thinking, because I know he gets it. Anybody who was thinking he doesn't get it, you just heard why he gets it. You just heard this guy's on the ground. He's not theorizing. He's in it every friggin' day, and you're not.
Dang.
And fighting the fight.
So I see it, and I.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead,
man.
Pastor Scott.
No, I was saying that this is why I took this position. Where I'm at, I can help more than anybody out there. My first goal was recidivism, helping people get out of prison. The same thing I noticed since I've been working with the gang groups. They have the same, everybody has to be able to re-entry programs back into society. You got a person in a HUD development, he's still got a slave mentality. He's still depending on the system. We got to break that. That's on his hard drive. That's on his mama's hard drive. And by me being old, I have a sight that nobody sees. I remember babies having babies, but now you got babies having babies, babies having babies. And the cycle has to be broken. And what I'm saying is it comes to a point where we stop having entitlement. When you do wrong, you do wrong. If the system is broken, stay out the system. And yes, there is biasness on the bench. Yes, there's things happening. But we, Thomas and Anthony, we have a fiduciary duty to go back and set these people free.
Well said. So how do we, thank you. How do we, Thomas, how do we set people free? How would we avoid the 17-year-old you ending up spending 20 years in prison?
Basically doing what Pastor Garland is doing. Like literally he is telling you that's what he do. Doing what we're doing, trying to
But I want you to share what that is. I mean, what is it?
Well, it's getting in there, letting them know that, listen, I've been where you're going. There's no future in what you're doing. We all understand that there's a saying that knowledge is power. When you know better, you do better. A lot of people know better, but they don't know how to do better. It's one thing to know something, but then the Bible tells you get an understanding. Now I know what I need to do. I need to understand how to do it. It's like I know a car work, but I don't know all the intricacies that make that car go. So our job is to inform them and to prepare them, especially one that are coming out of society, for a different way of life. I've been saying all week that when I came out, I had to come from survival mode to living mode. Most of the black folks that are doing stuff right now are in survival mode. They're trying to survive. Once you start living, then you begin to enjoy life because you know what it takes to make the right moves and make the right decision. And it comes from letting them know and seeing a Pastor Garland Scott or seeing a Pastor Thomas Joy that have been there and overcame. We can see, amen, the president, but they can't relate to him because they can't touch him. But you can touch a Garland Scott. You can touch a DJ. I've been there. I'm doing better. It ain't about the truck, but it's about that I'm doing the same stuff you're doing, working, making money. When you're selling drugs, you got to look over your shoulder. I don't have to look over my shoulder.
Right.
I need to live life a different way.
All right, DJ, weigh in on this. We got you back in.
One of the things that I think is pertinent to me and my journey and understanding what the plight is, what the block is from us receiving and ending up in these rural communities. I believe it's the value of life. And when I say the value of life, if you don't value my life, then I'm not worthy of equal prosecution. I'm not worthy of to be treated and respected well, even when you're apprehending me and I've done something wrong. If you don't value my life, that's how you take on the role of judge, prosecutor, and sentencer and kill me because you don't value my life. In our community, it's the same thing. We don't value each other's life. That's why it's easy for a 17-year-old to take a gun to school and shoot somebody because he doesn't value his own life or the life of the person that he kills. So that's something that has to be addressed when the whole system tells me I'm nothing. I'm nothing. How am I supposed to survive in a system where at every turn I'm getting, excuse my French, pissed on and made to feel like I'm not important? My thoughts don't matter. My community don't matter. Me getting hurt don't matter. Me getting locked up and beat don't matter.
And doesn't matter, DJ, doesn't matter to who? Doesn't matter to you, to the person in the community?
To the person in the community and the person who is on outside of the community who comes to police my community.
Right. But I would argue it also doesn't matter to a lot of well-intentioned white liberals. And here's why. Because again, a lot of the well-intentioned white liberals will go out. And I'm saying that because I want to qualify. They're well-intentioned and they're often liberal. It might be conservative too, but well-intentioned people will go out and say, oh, this is horrible that black people go to prison and da-da-da, and we need to. And this is where I was sort of pointing out with Roy. I wasn't saying he was wrong. And I'm not saying Roy is one of these people. I want to be clear. But we'll say, it's the system's the problem, the criminal justice system, the rules, the laws, all that's true. But a lot of white people don't really value the loss of black life. If there were white communities suffering the level of violence we see in Chicago every week, New York City every week, they would, I'm not kidding. They would be sending in the National Guard. They'd be like, no way are you going to kill all these young white people. And if you're white people killing them, we're going to lock you up too. And yet I think there's this sort of willingness to look past it. And that to me is a form of embedded racism, to look past it because it's black people who live over there.
Right.
Is that fair? Is that a fair comment?
Yes, because I'm going to give you an example. On the weekend when they had the Pride shooting in Orlando, there were, I think it was like 49 people who got killed in that.
Yep.
That same weekend, over 160 people got shot, and half of those were killed in the streets of Chicago. You didn't have the same rage, or you still don't have the same rage, and about that value of life. We know that it was a homosexuality, gay and lesbian club. So that even as us in our community is over our head, where we don't even have the same value of life that the people outside our community.
So how do we create? How does this dynamic change? And I appreciate what all of you are doing. And Pastor Scott, you're out there. All of you are. But I mean, really making an effort to change individual lives. I loved, Pastor Scott, you said to me, I work with the people most likely to get killed or most likely to kill. Like those are two horrible extreme points. But how do we change? Because again, I think one of the things that bothers me the most about the protests that have happened lately, I didn't mind. I was at them filming, was that I felt like most people who were white in those protests, they don't actually really care that much about individual black lives, because if they did, they'd be outraged at what's going on, both in terms of incarceration, in terms of violence. I think they'd be outraged, and they're not going to go in and do what you guys do. They're not going to make real human sacrifice for it. So at some level, how do we get white people to start looking at all black people differently, not just around police violence? And how do you get the black community to start valuing itself more in those communities? That's a huge question, I know, but someone take a shot at it.
What I do is every Thursday I go out with the gang unit and we go to black houses where Guys have been their documented, shot up, their family's a mess, and they go out with me so they see actually what we have to experience. And then see, people are visually stimulated. Like you said, if they're not around it, if they're not privy, it's old mantra, out of sight, out of mind. And Anthony hit it right on the head. Value is contingent upon rarity. And when you're rare, when you're different and you see people do things different, it changes, okay? When I bring out a white person in that vehicle and the gang unit jumps out and you bang to that door and you see they don't have nothing, and you see the guy that's the shooter there, and the mom said, he's not here, he don't want to talk to you, but I got 7 other kids that need your help. Something snaps inside of you. You become normal all of a sudden, and you start to value life again. So people got to get out. They got to be boots on the ground to see this thing. And then the next thing, you have to be the change. Okay, I wear suits, I dress neat, I go in there, they laugh at me first. A month down the line, hey, could you help me get a suit? Now on the weekends, I ride my Harley Davidson, I ride my motorcycle, I do what I got to do. But they got to see the change. So you got to bring the whites out, whatever race, bring them out with you. It ain't like TV. It's not like that. I got a guy right now, his girlfriend got shot, killed. He got 3 kids. He don't know what to do. He needs counseling. He don't got food. He don't have a job. He got a whole bunch of license issues, and he never had a license before. And when you bring somebody like that, they say, how could we help? It takes us 6 months to get them to normality. So when they see that, it begins to bring change.
And to anybody watching out there, you know, and I'll put up how people can get in touch and all, but this is where I keep, if you've been watching my show, I say nothing wrong with protesting, but it's easy in our society to go protest. You're not in, and people say, well, they'll shoot rubber bullets at you. In the worst case scenario, protesting's pretty easy. We're not a country where you're going to get locked up. Right now, you'd actually get a free pass. You probably could ask for time off work or school to go protest. The hard part would be to go into a community and actually see it and make a difference. And if you look at most of the protests, not a lot of people from the hood are out in the BLM protests. And part of the thing I've thought is because they're not seeing anything change for them. And that's where the problem is. We've got to deal with. It breaks my heart that, you know, I worked with a kid years ago. He was a young black man, sick teenager, and I became a big brother to him, and I got very close to him. And he was that classic kid. He was, you know, I've talked about him before. I wrote about him. His name was Norman. And, you know, went from saying, I hate white people to taking me to school as his big brother, you know, because his father was out of the picture. His older brother, he had a sister who had a baby. He had a mother who had a 2-year-old and a 20. It was a mess. And she was a drug addict. And at one point she said, Rob, will you adopt him? And I was like, no, I'm not going to adopt him. He's not. I mean, I'm here for him every day. She's like, please adopt him and get him out of this community. I did not do it. 9 months later, he died in a violent accident in a stolen car, and was the only white guy at his funeral sitting next to his mother. And there was a part of me that was always like, you can't get every kid out of these communities, but I was like, wow, it's like he couldn't escape it. Go ahead. Yeah, weigh in. Anybody, please.
Let me say this. I agree with both DJ and Pastor Scott, but I know a lot of people are protesting or causing protests and causing these rallies because it's voter season. Most folks want attention when they're doing what they're doing. And one thing that Pastor Gardner is saying that needs to happen, yeah, the boots need to hit the ground. We need to go out here and be about it, but we can't just turn around once we start. Soon as we get, okay, we'll change this, we still have to hold people accountable for what the change that we're saying that we want to bring about. You can't just come and we're going to rally and fight, but then when they give you one piece and you got a whole puzzle that needs to we get one piece in place, we are happy. We turn around and say, well, they fix it for the time, and we have to keep going. It has to continue to go, and people only going to, he said it, I'm going to change according to what I see. If all I see, we're so mentally damaged till we think the killing of a black person, black on black crime, that's the norm. We don't even get excited or appalled anymore. We don't even get upset. Oh man, as long as it wasn't my people. We don't even get mad like we get mad when a white officer kill her. But we need to be, that same energy needs to go for the same black life that is being taken. And then when we're doing the work, there's no way, because you got a little piece, you're going to give it. It's like the rat and the cheese syndrome. I'd rather stick my head in a trap for a little piece of cheese and I got a whole block over there.
So I want to look back. I want to loop back to this idea that started when Roy made that comment. And Roy's been great. He's texting in and stuff because it's just hard with everyone on the screen. We'll bring him back on before we're done. But you know, to address that fact, and you know, Pastor Scott, I made that comment and it got you all riled up. And again, I wasn't saying it that I meant it about you, but I was sort of trying to get that how some people can look at anybody who says what you guys are saying, which is, well, you know, it sounds like you're saying, you know, the focus on police brutality and white racism toward black people isn't really important. And I'm not saying that is what you're saying, but it's someone could easily imagine a conservative white person making the argument that Thomas just made, saying, you know, we should you'll hear conservatives, you'll hear the Candace Owenses say, you know, why aren't we looking more at black on black violence? And then, you know, the liberal side would say that's not the issue, but yet it is the issue, as both are real issues, right? They're not one or the other. They're both real. Is that true? They're both real. Both things are real.
Not one. They're not one
and
or
not,
the other.
they're both real, but when they're getting addressed, what is more likely to get addressed? Because going back to the value thing, if I, as a black community, am saying there's a problem with policing in my community, that's the catch-all is, well, stop the crime. But we're still not dealing with the root issue. The value in my community of life is so low and it's so unexpected. It goes way back to even the initiation of our Constitution. We weren't considered as part of the Constitution.
Right. And then
there's a part of the population of the United States that still holds true to that. You know, I'm in my community just today, and I'm taking one of my participants to his football practice. Across the street from his school is a house that has a Trump flag 20 feet long. There's nothing wrong with Trump. That's not what I'm saying. But then they have the Confederate flag flying on top of it, right across the street from a school, a black school. Wait a minute. So I'm saying, I said to my partner,
there is something wrong with that. There is something very wrong with that.
But this is the point. I said to the participant, which is 17 years old, I said, look at that flag. He said, what's wrong with that? He doesn't even know the history of that flag. He doesn't even know how those people feel about his existence. And so sometimes it's just my mere existence agitate. That's legitimate. And we got a generation whose self-hatred doesn't even qualify them to realize the hatred that they face from outside of the community. And so it's like, as long as they stay in the community and kill each other, we all right with that. And
we're fine with that.
To be addressed.
So, all right. So we're going to wrap this up. You guys, thanks for the comments people have been making on screen too. Sheila Powell's been offering a lot of great comments too. I want to acknowledge them. You know, this has been a great conversation. Roy, jump back in with us for a minute if you can.
I like old Roy.
Yeah, you like Roy. Thomas likes Roy. No, listen. So, and my point here isn't to is to say there's truth in all of this. Roy, you popped a question up. We have modern day slavery. You know, give me the 60-second version of that. And I see Thomas already nodding his head. We're running low on time, so you got to go fast because a lot of people out there be like, "What?"
Completely. No, it's legalized slavery. Our prison system is the largest and most populated in the world. And we criminalize activity like the war on drugs. And then for minor infractions like holding a dime bag, you get sent to prison for being Thomas was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he was 17. The human brain isn't fully formed until you're 25. And he goes to prison for 21 years.
And he got a life sentence. Got a life sentence.
It's because someone's making money when Thomas is in prison. Did you work when you were in prison, Thomas? Did someone get your labor?
What he's saying, in the Florida prison system, we have a thing called pride. The most they're going to pay an inmate to work is 35 cents an hour. The stuff that they make, chicken farms, furniture stuff, they go and sell it to other people. So I can work the dog crap out of you for nothing and make billions of dollars out of it.
Yeah.
So when you look at the Florida prison system, not just the Florida prison system, the
No,
U.S. prison system is $3.5 billion. It's worth. That's the money
Yeah,
that is
and I
generated.
think people need to realize that it is that we, whatever else you say, our prison system is a private profit,
not run by
for-profit
the government.
and like anything else that's private, it makes money when it's working. So the prison system's making money when it's got inmates
So
coming.
let me be clear. Let me be 100% clear. Prisons inputs are humans. Thomas goes to prison, and he is a product that prison uses. He's a tool that the prison uses to make money.
Yep.
And
All right, you guys, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Stay with me for a second after we're done, because we hit our little post stream for a minute on Reddit. I thank you all for being part of this dialogue. It's really powerful, and just stay with me for a second and do a quick close here to the audience, because I like to share my last thoughts. So you guys, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much for joining. Just stay with us in the green room. I'll be right back. Everybody out there who's watching, here's what I want you to know. This conversation cannot be solved if this problem can't be solved if we don't start having a fuller conversation about it. So whichever part of this thing you come down on, if you saw anything tonight, hopefully it is that it's not simple and it's not easily put in one side or the other, left or right, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, or even black and white. It is a complex problem. The roots of it are in white oppression, white slavery, white laws that held black people down. There are systemic roots that have continued on through. But at the same time, that has created its own organic problem that DJ sort of said so well in the community, in a lack of value, and a lack of value of life, and a lack of us as a society valuing black on black violence, because it's not our violence and it's not sexy like a shooting. That's a wrong word, but I mean, it doesn't get the profile attention that a mass shooting gets. And because it's not a cop shooting somebody. All those things are bad. All those things happen, but it's a complex problem with lots of different pieces. And we're only going to solve it when we all start realizing that it's not right or wrong, or one piece is right or wrong, that all these pieces have to be addressed. And we have to sort of start putting our minds together and our resources together. And at a minimum, at a first step, start really looking. If you're out there and you are all for BLM and that whole thing, then take a trip to an inner city community. Go find a way to do a ride along. Get involved. Put your feet on the ground and put your awareness. Post this stuff on your social media for people to see. Change is going to take all of us, not just these guys. I'm Rob Nelson. It's Rob Nelson Live. Thanks for watching.